remember one time I was in like early years, like kindergarten. I looked at the teacher, maybe she shouted at me, and she became blind.
What?
They get me, put me in a cave with dead bodies, lock it for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, because of the people who were praying around him, he could ascend in the spirit and become like an authority. She hits me in the pad, and she's not saying a word, just looks like me. Then I knew now it's bad. Because I had never encountered such kind of power.
Welcome to Prayer Storm TV. Today we're going to be going into one of the deepest testimonies I have come across as it pertains to deliverance from the occult and witchcraft. And I'm so excited about this testimony. I came across this man in 2017, and this testimony radically impacted my life. Now, I've got a background. I'm half Ghanaian and half Nigerian. And with the kind of background I have, some of you who are watching have similar background to me. You're probably Nigerian or Ghanaian or African. You would have heard testimonies of people that have been delivered from the occult, of had encounters with Jesus and shared of how Jesus delivered them. And I've heard many of these sort of testimonies. However, this one we're about to hear, in my opinion, is one of the most intense and deep I've come across. And I believe God's going to use this testimony to impact you in a significant way. So I want you to stay tuned. Now, our guest today, we actually had to fly him all the way from Uganda to capture this testimony. Because when I heard this many years ago, I was so impacted. I got connected with him, and we've been relating for a few years. And the Lord made it possible for us to be able to get him over to Manchester. So for the first time, it's his first time in the UK, and I'm excited that we're going to get to hear from him today. So would you welcome with me, James Kawaya from Uganda. James, it's good to have you in Manchester.
Amen. I thank God that I'm here. And this is my first time to be in the UK. And the timing of the Lord is the best. I know this is the first time also I'm recording my testimony in its fullness. Must have been sharing in different platforms, but this is the first time I'm sitting in a recording to share my life testimony. So I thank God for this opportunity. And oftentimes when I'm sharing my testimony, it's like I'm going back through those experiences. I need a grace. Sometimes the pain returns, the pain of the thing that I went through. But I thank God that now, after many years now, it's 23 years since I gave my life to Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And the 23 years has been amazing. I have seen the goodness of God. And also, as we start this journey, I want to tell the people that the purpose is to glorify Jesus. Not the devil, not what the devil can do or what he has done. But at the end of the day, Jesus is the winner.
Yeah.
So that's why. So I'm glad that I'm here.
I'm so excited to have you here in Manchester, because as we go into the details of your testimony, I'm going to be asking you questions about, things that have happened in your past. And as you share them, there'll be things that, I'm sure lots of people may not even understand, because we have lots of people watching. People from African backgrounds may be able to relate. Some of you watching are from Western backgrounds, and you might not understand some of the depth of the occult. In fact, some of these things will blow your mind when you hear, the depth to which people engage in dark activities. But I know, just as James said, God is going to use this to glorify his name. And I also want to point this out before we go into this testimony, that right now you're a pastor. You lead a church in Uganda, and you're used in incredible ways by God in deliverance ministry, miracles, and God moving. In fact, primarily you're an intercessor. You're used in strategic. Do you just want to just give us an idea of some of the things you do right now?
I am leading a ministry called Lifeway Institute of Deliverance. What we do and what God has called me to do is to strategically train intercessors to pray and take over territories for God. So mostly I'm not pastoring the church, though I started the church. We are having other pastors pastoring the church. We're also running a Christian television station in Uganda, worship television, just for worship and prayer. One of the things the Lord told me to do after encountering Jesus and seeing the power of prayer. By the way, I knew the power of prayer before I became born again. I kept encountering people praying and wondering what kind of lives are they. One example, maybe to bring it out, is I was still in the occult, and I was in the city in Kampala. And I remember I got instruction from our leaders to vacate the city and stay away 70 miles away from the city and remove all our operations, because a man of God was coming in the city. And I remember we were told that if we stay in the city where that man is, his prayer would kill us all convert us. And I remember the instruction was stay out of the city 70 miles away.
Wow.
But also do not enter the city even 21 days
After
he has left. So I was still in the occult, and I was like, what kind of power is this? Because I knew the power, I knew Satan, I knew I had been all in these kind of powers. But then we were being warned not be around that man's, where he is in the city. That man was Maurice Cerullo. So he was coming in the city, and I remember we were told, stay out of the city 70 miles away and do not enter the city another 21
That's
days.
incredible.
Because even after 21 days, his power, the effect of his power remains in the atmosphere after 21 days. Wow. He has been in the city. So I knew the power of prayer. So when I came to Christ, the Lord was telling me, okay, you have seen the mistakes, the errors, because one of the work I was doing before I came to Christ was fighting churches and breaking churches. And the Lord was saying, now, you know how you broke these churches, and you know what were the errors and the mistakes and the weaknesses. So can you train an army of intercessors all over the world to bring out, to stand and take territories?
Wow.
So we are working with nations like Sri Lanka. We will have work in Sri Lanka. I work in Singapore. I work in Botswana. I work in Gabon. And a few places where I've been doing.
You've been in Europe to a few places as well.
We're having a work in Munich. We're doing a great work in Munich to raise intercessors and train young people to intercede, and then they take over the nations in prayer. So one of my calling, people call me apostle, others pastor, but my call is an intercessor. That's
Amen.
So I don't know if you can call me intercessor James.
I like that. I like that. So now let's go back to the beginning. What are the earliest memories you have?
My memory, when I was around 3 years, I realized in my home I was living with my mom and my uncle, the brother to my mom, and no one else. And it was strange because I was wondering why other people don't come to our home. Later I realized that when I was 3 months old, my father and my sisters left the home and did not return because of the strange things that were happening in the house, in the home. Now, I don't know what happened, the strange things. I didn't see, unless when my mother told me my story. But when I was 3 years, the event that I can remember is the death of my uncle. And when I began now my initiation into witchcraft, when I was 3 years.
I want us to come back to the death of your uncle, but before we come back to that, can you tell us what happened before you were born? Because this is a really critical part of understanding your journey. Give us an idea of what was going on with your mom and a marriage and her desperation to have a son that laid the foundation for you to come into this world.
So I came to hear this story when I was around 12 years, to hear the story of my birth and why I was strange. Now, by the age of 12, I was already deep in the occult. I'd been made a trainer of witches when I was the age of 9. At the age of 7, I was a territorial witch in charge of a territory. I had strange powers. People older than my mother could come and bow to me. Politicians, businessmen, for powers. So I kept wondering, where did I get all these powers? Where am I strange? But my mother kept taking me to different witch doctors for help, to be delivered from those powers. But several times we could go to these places, to the witch doctors, and the witch doctors could chase my mother away, claiming that when she takes me to them, I steal their powers. So like even the witches, the sorcerers, the diviners, even they hated me because they were, this baby has strange powers. So my mother decided to take me to a man in Pemba. Pemba is in